My first Grammy was a total shock.
And the Grammy goes to The Good Feeling, Christian McBride Big Band.
Thank you so very, very much. I'd like to thank the members of the Academy, New York chapter.
Well, welcome back. Welcome back to the Extraordinary Bass Player Show. As you know, I'm your host, Sharon Moore. You know, I always say today. Well, family, we got him on the show. Oh, man. Can you believe at a young age, sort of, this guy is already being considered a legend. Oh, man, that is something right there. Talk about a body of work. You all know him. He's a musician. He's a musical director. He's a producer. He's a broadcaster. He's an educator, a recording artist. We're going to talk about that later on. He's a band leader. And as I said, an arranger, composer. I added these. A visionary, an awesome entrepreneur, 9 times Grammy Award winners. Where do you put all those at? Will you help me welcome my guest today, bassist Christian McBride. Hey, Christian.
What's up? What's up? What's up? It's good to see you, man.
Welcome to the Extraordinary Bass Player Show.
Thank you for having me.
It's, as they say in Europe, it's my delight.
Thank you, brother. Thank you.
You know, I'm going to jump around a little bit. You have an awesome body of work, and it would take me, listen, I already got 2 pages and a folder here. So it'll take me volume 12 to get through this interview. So I'm going to jump around a little bit of history, a little bit of the body of work. You're originally from Philly, PA.
That's right.
A lot of music down there.
I would say it was the bass capital of the world, but we share that with Detroit. I don't mind sharing.
Philly, man. There's a lot of music coming out of there, boy. All kinds of music, all kinds of artists.
Amen.
You got your first bass at 10 years old?
9, actually. I was 9 years old when I got my first electric bass, and I was 11 when I started playing the double bass.
Sheesh. Tell me, what is that song, Walking in Rhythm by Donald Byrd? What did that do to you?
I don't know. It was one of the first songs that I heard that kind of stuck to my memory. I seem to, like, my memory only goes back to, 3 years old, which was, for me, 1975. So anything that was hit that year, I seem to remember that. So, like, Walking in Rhythm sticks out. Rock the Boat sticks out. Those are some of the songs I remember hearing that just kind of the first songs I remember wanting to hear again.
You don't know nothing about no Rock the Boat.
Hughes Corporation, baby.
That's what you call a brown liquor song.
Hey, well, it was plenty brown liquor in West Philly, I'll tell you that.
I remember them old folks play that song, throw on a wig, grab a cup, and go. How you take liquor to the bar? I never understood that.
BYOB, right?
Oh, see, I'm gonna have some fun with you. BYOB, boy. Let me do this one. Your father played bass?
My father is the great Lee Smith. He's working more now than he was 40 years ago. He is killing it now.
Woo.
Yep. And he was killing it then. Yeah, my dad doesn't he doesn't really leave Philly that often. Every once in a while, he'll get on a gig on the road with Odine Pope, but he generally stays close to Philly. And he's in his 70s now, and he's just working his butt off.
Tell me about Uncle, though. Uncle had something to do with that, too, now.
Oh, Uncle Howard is the reason why I fell in love with jazz. So I started playing the double bass in middle school, but I was playing in the orchestra, and my Uncle Howard, his full name is Howard Cooper. He's in his 80s now. He found out that I was taking double bass lessons in school. He said, come over, I got something to play for you. and he gave me a crash course in the history of jazz in maybe 6 or 7 hours. And solely from that visit to his house, that's what made me fall in love with jazz.
As I said, with having such a large body of work, I got to jump around a little bit. And moving you forward, let's go to college. Let's go to Juilliard. What was the scene over there? You got it on. You got it on.
Shout out to the Yard.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Tell me about Mr. Herbert Mitch over there.
Yeah, Homer Mitch.
Homer Mitch. There you go.
Yes. Well, he was one of the true legends. You know, he was the principal bassist for the New York Phil for, I think, 40 plus years. And he taught so many great musicians. And when I got to Juilliard, my original goal was to somehow have a dual career, being a jazz bass player and a classical bassist, because my classical playing was much better then than it is now, because I was doing it regularly. So I studied with Homer, and he always had a soft spot for jazz bass players. And so when I would go to my weekly lesson, the first 15 minutes of the lesson would be him asking me, "Oh, hey, who'd you play with this last weekend? You know, what gigs you got coming up? You know, what songs are you doing?" You know, so he was always, he was one of the greatest teachers ever. And when I decided not to go back to Juilliard for my second year, he was actually the first person I talked to. And he said, "Well, look, if you're working, and that's the real reason you came to New York anyway, you know, to start getting gigs with people you look up to." He said, "Hey, you have my blessing. You can stay, you know, we can, you know, you can still study with me away from Juilliard. But if you want to come back to Juilliard, the school will always be here. So you go follow your dreams." So he was always cool.
Is that around the time you got the call from Ray Brown?
Not long after that, I was playing with Benny Green, the pianist Benny Green. We were playing a gig in the Village at a place called the Knickerbocker, and Marianne Topper, who was one of the most legendary music agents and managers jazz has ever known, she knew Ray Brown very well. And so she said, "I'm going to bring Ray to come hear you and Benny." And so Benny and I playing this duo gig, and sure enough, here comes Ray Brown. And we were just, we were scared to death. The great Ray Brown's there sitting in the audience listening to us. And after our set was over, we went to go hang with Ray at his table. And he just couldn't have been nicer. Just a really sweet, sweet man. And he said, "Why don't you guys come and see my final night at the Blue Note?" He was playing the Blue Note a few blocks away. He said, "Come by and see my final show at the Blue Note." So Benny and I went, and what I experienced really blew my mind, because I really liked Ray Brown up until that point. But Ron Carter had been my main man. And he's still my main man, but this was my first time to experience Ray Brown live. And my seat wasn't very far from the front of the stage, so his bass was no more than 7 or 8 feet away from my head. And the sound that came out of that bass, I still remember it like it was yesterday, because he had a little tiny amplifier. He had like a little tiny polytone amp. I don't even think it was a 10-inch speaker. It might have been an 8-inch speaker. And it was on, but it wasn't that loud. And most of the sound was coming from the bass. And that bass, it was just so perfect. That's the only word for it, perfect. Like that thick, voluptuous, woody sound. And he wasn't killing the bass. You know, a lot of us young bass players at that time thought, like, in order to get a good natural sound out of an instrument, you had to gorilla it. And Ray Brown wasn't gorillaing the bass. You know, he was playing it with strength, but like it was like karate strength, like pointed strength. You know, like he wasn't just, you know, me and all the other young cats Ben Wolf, Rodney Whitaker, we were taking the strings and pulling them way back like that, And Ray Brown and all those guys, they were like, man, what are you young boys doing? You don't have to play the bass like that to get a good sound. And when I saw him play live, that completely messed my world up. And I became a Ray Brown loyalist after that night.
Let's talk endorsements. Let's talk gear. What basses you playing, strings, so forth and so on.
So many of my musician friends are so disappointed in me because I've never really been much of a gearhead. Coming from that acoustic bass school, and just from that old school, being around people like Ray Brown and being around people like Ron Carter and Al McKibben and Clark Terry, Freddie Hubbard, whoever it was, they always say, hey, your sound is here. You know what I mean? Like, if you ain't getting nothing out of here, don't matter what kind of amp you got. Don't matter what kind of strings you have. You better get your sound together right there, So with that being said, I did meet Nick Epifani. I'm sure you know Nick. I've known him for about 24 years, and I started using his equipment way back then. I still use it. You don't find, you can't, as a jazz artist, sometimes you play venues where you can't always get what you ask for. So you get the next best thing. You get B and C. So if I don't get Epifani somewhere out on the road, I can almost make anything work, in terms of amplification. I use a microphone that is made by a company called Ear Trumpet Labs. They're based on the West Coast. I believe they're in Portland, Oregon. And they have a custom bass mic called a Nadine. The guy that makes all the microphones names his microphones. I think after like his kids or his wife. Well, I'm saying this on the record, so I might be completely wrong, but the bass mic is called Nadine. So I've been using the Ear Trumpet Lab Nadine bass mic now for almost, I guess, about 7 or 8 years now, six or seven, something like that. And in terms of my acoustic basses, they're not, they're not mass made. So I don't really have, I have a no-name German bass I've been using now for about 30 years. I have a beautiful Australian Italian bass that I bought in Melbourne, made by a beautiful luthier by the name of Ben Puglisi. So I have his bass, Puglisi bass, and I have one of Ray Brown's old basses. I believe it's that's also a bass that we call a no-name bass. I think it's a Romanian bass, and that bass is not that old. That bass was it was estimated that it was built either in the late 70s or the early 80s, and it's still a really good axe. And so those are my main three acoustic basses. And in terms of my electric basses, I got a bunch of them.
Please welcome 6-time Grammy Award-winning bassist and composer, Emmy nominee, and host of NPR's Jazz Night in America, Mac Avenue Records recording artist, Christian McBride. Christian McBride.
Here's one for you. Let's talk credits a little bit. I'll mention a few names to you, and you tell me what does it mean? Well, how does it resonate? How did it hit you? What was the scene like? Let's do Milt Jackson.
Yeah.
Woo, 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 woo.
Bags. One of the Titans, man. One of the Titans. He was probably Ray Brown's closest friend, you know, outside of Oscar Peterson. Ray and Milt used to hang tight. Milt, when he wasn't working with the Modern Jazz Quartet, always had a top-notch quartet. And, you know, he had a lot of different cats play with him, you know, like piano players like Cedar Walton or James Williams or Mike LaDon, Monty Alexander. I played bass in a couple of his quartets. He'd have Dennis Irwin or, I mean, all kinds of, Peter Washington. Drums, he'd have Kenny Washington, Mickey Roker, Lewis Nash, all kinds of good cats. And Mulgrew Miller actually played piano with him as well. So Milt lived in Teaneck, New Jersey, and he used to hang out all the time and come see what the young cats were doing. And, you know, Milt always had this, Milt was from Detroit, so he always had Milt always had that thing, like, you know, he was a little guy, so he used to like he had a little bit of a Napoleon complex, so, you know, he would see me and be like, you know, come on, McBride, put him up. You think because you big, I can't whoop your ass. Come on, I got something for you, you know. Like, come on, Milt. And, you know, my favorite Milt Jackson story is he came to see me play at the Vanguard one time after the set was over. There he is standing in the kitchen. He's like, come on, McBride, I'm gonna knock your ass out. I'm like, what'd I do? He's like, nothing. I'm just gonna knock your ass out. Come on. You know? They're old school, man. He's like Fred Sanford, you know.
Let me throw another credit at you. McCoy Tyler.
West Philadelphia, 48th and Fairmount. That's where McCoy was from. Little tiny street called May Street. He wrote a song called May Street. Man, what can I say about McCoy Tyner? You know, he really was probably the most dominant sound in modern jazz piano. There was jazz piano before McCoy Tyner, and there's jazz piano after McCoy Tyner. He created a sound and a language that you have to learn how to play. You know, it's like McCoy Tyner has something very similar to Thelonious Monk in that his DNA is so deeply ingrained in his music that if you play a McCoy Tyner song, you're going to sound like McCoy Tyner whether you're trying to or not, because that's how deep his personality is in his music. And it's the same thing with Monk. You hear people play Thelonious Monk music and you're like, oh yeah, that's Monk. That's a Monk tune, you know, because you know what his traits are, you know. And McCoy Tyner, I think his personality is the exact same way. You know, you hear those fourths, you hear that rooting fifth in the left hand, you hear those fourths, they're like, oh, McCoy Tyner, you know. And I'm just really fortunate that I had the great honor of playing and recording with him so much, you know. And of course, we had the Philly thing too, because, you know, once he found out that not only was I from Philly, but we're from the same neighborhood in Philly, you know, he was like, oh, dude, you know, hey, you know. So yeah, man, I miss that man. What a Titan.
Christian, let me move you on down the road a little bit. We do a thing on the show we call Word of Advice, where I ask the guests, I ask the musicians, if they would leave a parting word of advice for the younger guys, the guys that are coming up in this game, in this industry, but that's trying to get traction in this game, even the older guys. Christian, would you leave them a word of advice?
Yeah, I feel like with specific regard to young bass players, I would like to say that playing bass really is a mindset. You know, yes, you have to develop your skill, you have to develop your technique, just like you have to learn to develop your verbal language. You know, there are things you have to develop just to be able to live. But in terms of being a bass player, the mindset is to serve first. I know it's tempting to, have fast chops to be able to play a bunch of technically difficult things to impress people, get those YouTube clicks, building your brand, as they say today. Building your brand is based off of your mindset to go and serve the music. There's a reason why Ron Carter, somebody like Ron Carter is a perfect example. Ron Carter has never really had flashy chops, but why has he been the most working bass player for 65 years? Why is it that at age 87, people still want this man to play on their recordings? Because he plays the right note at the right time with the right feel. He ain't trying to be flashy. He ain't trying to show up anybody. He comes in and he plays the bass part. And I think that's a lesson that people need to learn. Like, I'm much too pragmatic. Like, you want to be flashy or you want to work? See, I wanted to work. I wanted people like George Duke, Joe Henderson, Freddie Hubbard, Ray Brown, Milt Jackson, Betty Carter to call me for gigs. They not going to call me for gigs listening to me play the melody to Donna Lee. That's not going to help them groove their band any. Now, they'll look at me do that and be like, ooh, that's impressive. I play all these harmonics on the upright bass and all this flashy stuff down here. They're like, oh, yeah, that's killing. But I don't need that in my band, So get your mind right. Playing bass is a mindset. Play the right notes at the right time with the right pocket. And as long as you know you're there to serve, your calendar is going to be filled from now till 2065.
That's good stuff, man. Christian, tell me about this one. I wrote it this way, so I hope I got it right. Project Christian McBride's N.W. Dwan.
Oh, the New John.
Huh?
Yeah, so I had a band called the New John, which is, that's Philly slang for new things. So I had the band is called the New John, and our second record was called Prime. That just came out, I think Prime was released in 2022, early 2022. And that was my primary band for about a good 6 or 7 years. We did 2 albums. Josh Evans on trumpet, Marcus Strickland on tenor saxophone and bass clarinet, and the great Nasheet Waits on drums. I really enjoyed playing with that band. I'm sure at some point we'll play together again, but we had a really, really good run. And now I'm focusing mostly on Ursa Major, my new group of young lions.
Christian, what do you want your legacy to be said, to be told?
Have you seen this video that's been going around of Mike Tyson answering that same question?
No, I haven't.
Never would I give the same answer, but it's hilarious because like this little girl from like a kid's website asked Mike Tyson, what does he want his legacy to be? And Tyson's like, who cares? You'll be dead. And I was like, oh damn, come on, Mike. Don't traumatize the little girl. But I don't know, man. You know, I just hope that whatever it is, I just hope people remember me with a smile and some laughs and some good music. And whoever the next, like really major working bass player is in jazz after I'm gone, I hope they'll listen to me play and be like, I can do better than that. Hope I can give them some inspiration, to take it up there, take it further.
Christian, let me say thank you so very much for being on the Extraordinary Bass Player Show.
It was my pleasure, man. It was so wonderful speaking with you, and I appreciate it.
I hope you'll come back again and again.
You know where to find me now.
Let me also say, if I may, thank you to the guys over at Red Light Management. I might say Megan and Griffin and those guys for putting it together as well. Thanks for their patience with that as well. But will you help us wave goodbye to all the fans?
See y'all. Keep it in the pocket.
Oh, yeah. Like James Brown said, before I get there, I got to get in D.
Ooh, down D. Funky D. Stinking D.
Thank you again, Christian.
You got it, my brother.